Pleasant good evening to everyone who's listening on ZBVI Live, on Facebook, and persons far and wide beyond the Virgin Islands. Before I begin, I would like to ask, before we begin, I would like to ask for a moment of silence for Kishan Thomas, who lost his life tragically today in a motorcycle accident. I want to send prayers to his family and the entire Eastern Island community who's lost yet another young man in a tragic way. Thank you.
All right, you can be seated, the media. I'd like to say good evening and God's blessings to everyone that have attended this press conference this evening, and also for those who are viewing via the social media and listening through other medias. And we want to thank you for coming out for what we try to do as a weekly press conference, whether it's to update persons or also to make sure that we answer questions that you may have, and also to let you to know how is our fight going in the COVID-19 coronavirus worldwide pandemic. Tonight I'm pleased to be joined by my good friend, my very good friend, the leader of the opposition, Honorable Marlon Penn, who we've had discussions with, and we have both decided to put down the political party lines, because this one is about country, not about us. This one is larger than us, and we have decided that it is the best for the territory that we work together on this. We recognize that we always, in politics, opposition and government would have difference in opinion and difference in methodology. But one thing is sure, that I'm sure of, is that we all have in mind what's best for the British Virgin Islands, and everywhere else in the world that should be the same for any opposition or government. But one thing for sure in the BVI is we are all members of Team BVI, and we're in this together. Today I want to say that we have pledged as a government to work along with the entire opposition, led by Honorable Marlon Penn as a leader, to make sure that whatever needs to be done is done. A good idea is a good idea no matter where it comes from. And we want to make sure that all hands are on deck for this one. We want to make sure that in the middle of what persons may deem as despair, as dissension, economic dissension, health dissension, that we can be innovative together as a team and use what the enemy has sent for dissension really now to put the BVI towards the path of our ascension. So we recognize that more is done when we're united. A chain is as strong as its weakest link, is what we have learned as one of our known for parents' proverbs. So therefore, our areas in which we have as weakest link, we must strengthen them. I want to say that we continue to fight against the COVID-19. Today I had the pleasure of touring the facilities in case, God forbid, that we do get a case, and I am happy that it is ready. I'm sad to know that we may have to use it, but I am happy for the proactive measures that have been put in place. I welcome the leader of the opposition, which he would say to keep progging, keep pressing, and I welcome my government members to do the same, so we do not become complacent in the middle of this. What we do is we do the discussions. This charge, Cabinet has endorsed and approved that the NEOC stands down and be deactivated to allow for the HEOC, the Health Emergency Center, to lead the path on this, given that it's a health pandemic, and given that it's also allowed within the confines of the law under Cap 194, the Public Health Act. We have the Quarantine Act, and we also have the Public Health Act, the Quarantine Act, and we also have the Infectious Disease Act that governs what happens when you have a health pandemic and infectious disease, which gives the Chief Medical Officer and the Ministry of Health, with the Minister of Health, certain powers under the Act. And we have asked for everyone to work together, which we are seeing with the Cabinet, along with the 5 ministers. Cabinet is the 5 ministers because with the Attorney General, with the Cabinet Secretary and the Governor who chairs Cabinet, we have been working together for the best for the territory. Although whenever we say that decisions are made by Cabinet, I still meet a lot of persons who are still not clear what Cabinet is or who Cabinet is or what Cabinet does. Well, the Cabinet, as I stated, is the composition is that of the 5 ministers, who are the only ones that can vote. And then you have the Attorney General, ex officio, but a not voting member, and the Chairman of Cabinet, which is the Governor, but a non-voting member, and the Cabinet Secretary, of course, who will do the secretarial vote, a non-voting member. And then the Cabinet feeds into the House of Assembly and vice versa. Because if the House of Assembly sees areas that the territory needs to address, and it's brought to us by the government members or by the opposition members through the leader of the opposition, then it behooves us through the channels of government to get the necessary legislations or regulations done, bring them through Cabinet, and then carry them to the House of Assembly. So it's all intertwined. So it is important to note that Cabinet has made a lot of decisions that we see going to help through these difficult times, but we have a lot more to do. I'm glad that you have heard lately about the one for agriculture and fishing, where we have allocated $2 million with a program that you will hear more about later on this week, so that every single district, leaving none out, will be able to be self-sufficient in terms of feeding themselves with produce, with also the different fish, because that is our heritage and we're going to do it in a modern way. And we're doing it to make sure that it's done transparently, with accountability, and also to make sure that every single person, no matter whether they're on the government's side or not, because there's no side right now, gets an equal opportunity to make sure that they're able to represent their area efficiently during this pandemic. Because we know that if it continues down a long road, food security will become an issue. We have also seen lately where you have heard the announcement that first one was an announcement by the Minister of Education and Culture and Youth Affairs, Sports and Fisheries and Agriculture, the Honorable Dr. Natalia Wheatley. But we also see the Minister of Transportation and Works, Honorable Kai Reimer, who also announced, and these initiatives are one to help everyone. And it's not through a ministry alone, it's a united effort. So when persons hear a minister say something, they say they're still waiting on the Minister of Finance for certain things, but all of it, we're together on it. And no one person on the government nor the opposition can adequately handle this matter. We need all hands on deck. So everyone is going to have a role to play. We have had many meetings, and the leader of the opposition has graced us with his presence to all, and have given some very good input with telecom. He has given some very good input even with food security, with the banks, and we've taken some of them up. And I'm sure that he'll continue to be a light in the tunnel with the rest of us, making sure that whatever areas that he could prog the government, mainly me as the Premier Minister of Finance, that he would do as part of his duty, but also as part of being a Virgin Islander, which is one of which we are resilient people. And we have shown that over and over, from Irma to Maria, and now we come to the corona, which we are saying that it's a world pandemic. We have seen how the whole world is being affected by this. There's nothing that is happening is unique to the Virgin Islands. We first allocated just under $3 million from the contingency fund to be proactive, so we can test for the coronavirus on island and know the results in a couple hours, and have the verification through CARFA in Trinidad. So we also invest in hazmat suits. We also invest in making sure that the hospital is retrofitted, so as the isolation unit, as I said that I taught today, is ready, and I applaud the staff of the BVIHSA Health Services authority, which the leader of opposition was also a minister. So I thank him for his work that he did as a minister. So we thank them because they are part of those on the front line. And they have done a marvelous job with the hospital, with different areas to make sure that they are working. The Minister of Health, I wouldn't steal his thunder. He has to do the more statistical and reporting for you before the week is out. But it is to let you to know that the only way that you can fight fair is by bringing hope. And one of the areas we want to know is that we have just over $12 million spent through the HEOC. All of it is routed through the HEOC, where health alone has been allocated just over $8 million to make sure whatever is needed by our health professionals has been given to them. They have given the list. We have even went as far as a contingency and even to the reserve, so that whatever is needed, it is given to them. We are also now making sure that we take care of our frontline border control persons, customs and police. And you would have heard the governor with his press conference telling about what has been done with police and customs. But we also are making sure that whatever is needed by the police, whatever is needed by customs to make sure our borders is protected, is being given to them at this time to make sure that they help us to stay safe. I want to say that I know a lot of the measures that have been taken are ones that have not met with favor by everyone. And it hurts my heart sometimes to make some of them, because we know that businesses will be affected, but that's not unique to us. But we are trying our best to be preventative. We're trying our best to make sure that we keep the coronavirus out from our shores. But we also know, God forbid, that eventually, that if something have to happen, we also have the plans and the facilities ready to cope with it as much as we can. But the truth be told, there exists no country, no territory that will have all the resources to handle a full territory or countrywide outbreak. So the key here is prevention. And the key here that is, if a case is confirmed, to ensure that it's contained so it doesn't spread. We have also make sure, other than making sure now that you can only operate businesses, all businesses, no matter what they are, churches, no matter what they are, must only operate from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we also have making sure that measures are put in place security-wise to have persons who decide to ignore those measures are being dealt with. I want to commend the people of the Virgin Islands because the majority of them are adhering to the measures. But there are some who are not adhering to the measures. And I want you to know that I continue to say this because it's very important that when you continue to ignore the measures that have been put in place, you're not doing it to spite the government. You're not doing it to spite your, the leader of the opposition or myself. You're doing it endangering your own family, endangering your children, endangering your mother, your father, your sister, your wife. We have to adhere to the measures. One person sent me a picture of a party here someday with a little baby, and this was only a few days ago. And to the gathering, there was at least about 70 persons there, and they were passing around the baby. Those things I want to tell you publicly cannot be. You are endangering the child. You're endangering the entire persons that attend. There's a quota for the mass gathering. I want persons to know that we cannot behave normal in an abnormal situation. And we cannot solve this problem, unconventional problem, using conventional methods. So now we have reduced the mass gathering down to 20. And we're asking persons to understand that we're doing this in the best interest of all to save lives. This is about saving lives, so you have a life first so that you can worry about making the money after. But if you are worried about making the money now and you put your life in danger and you lose your life, then the money that you made has no worth. So I want persons to understand that all the measures put in place, whether by the government directly or by suggestions that have been already given by the opposition and implemented through cabinet, and also other things that we're going to do in the House of Assembly, we want you to know that these are being done to save lives. Later on this week, I'll also be giving some speech on the financial services and other areas, because I want you to know that despite we're going through dilemma, that the BVI is still open for business. And I want you to know that despite we're going through despair in some areas, that we have hope. We have always been able to rebound because of the God of our forefathers. We have had a National Day of Prayer, and we continue on Sunday with prayers. And I want to say that only prayers and faith in God and works, because faith without works is useless, will we get through this one. I've seen nations that never call on God, calling on God now and calling for National Day of Prayer. And your government, with the opposition, the House of Assembly, we've been praying. As a matter of fact, we've been praying so much that people have made packet as me as Premier with how much we've been praying. But I'm seeing now that I myself can't keep up with some with prayers that they're going up. And I'm glad, because the more of us join together to pray for our family, for each other, for the territory, for the region, and for the world. Because most of us here have to be concerned in the Virgin Islands. We have family in America, in nearly every state. We have family in Italy. We have family in the United Kingdom. We have family in a lot of the high-risk areas. So even although we have 0 cases, we are still concerned about our brothers and sisters and the people in the other areas, because we cannot live selfishly. So I want to say that I really thank the leader of the opposition for coming here tonight to show that we're in this together. It is not a light step, because on both sides you will have to fight some supporters and others who will want to tell you otherwise. But now is not the time for this. Now is not the time for division. As a matter of fact, there's no time ever for division. There's always a section that's called difference of opinion, but not division. It's a time of unity. And one thing, when everyone is in the boat rowing in the same direction, you will get plenty accomplished, other than when all of us in the boat and half rowing one direction, the other half rowing in the other direction. So I want to say that I really commend the leader of the opposition. I know he still has his work to do to make sure that we stay on our toes. And when I say we, I don't mean me alone. All of us, him, his members, my members, and all of us, because we're in this together. So I want to tell the leader of the opposition that I cannot shake his hand, only because of COVID-19. But I want to say that I could definitely embrace his hat for what he has done today and doing by showing the unity between the opposition and the government to say that we can put everything else down and keep focus that the people of the Virgin Islands and their well-being and their safety and their prosperity is first and foremost. To God be the glory for what he has done. And now I'll ask for the leader of opposition to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Honorable Premier. 2 big guys at the front, so we got to spread out. Social distancing. Thank you, Premier, for that update and really embracing this unity that we pledge here this evening. At the end of the day, it's about the Virgin Islands and the people of the Virgin Islands. And that is the oath that we took when each of us took office, and I'm here to pledge that unity. I have a brief statement. The Premier has went into a detailed breakdown on what they've been doing, but I have a brief statement. I think it's important for me to still read this statement. For the people who's listening on Facebook Live across the Virgin Islands, outside the Virgin Islands, at the end of the day, we have persons, Virgin Islanders, who are outside the Virgin Islands, who are experiencing what we are experiencing today. So we also have to be mindful of them as well as we go through this process, because the Virgin Islands diaspora is far and wide throughout the territory, throughout the world. So I think we also have to be mindful of those persons as well. Yes. Again, a pleasant good evening to the visitors and the residents of the Virgin Islands. Over the past week or so, Premier and I have been speaking quite frequently most times on the matter related to this present pandemic. The gravity of the current pandemic and its potential threats and implications are well understood by us, as well as of many of you. In those conversations, there was one constant. We recognize as leaders, and more so Virgin Islanders, we both want the same thing for all of us. Foremost, the health, safety, and well-being of our people, and as well as the sustainability and success of our industries and our economy. For all of us that are keeping tabs on the global fallout of this pandemic, there is no denying, excuse me, there's no denying that achieving any of each of these goals, which are fundamental to living a good life, would not, in the present circumstances, be easy. I am comforted, however, to be here in my capacity as the leader of the opposition to underscore a point that all of us must accept. That is the best results for all of us and our territory can only come if we are united in our approach as far as reasonably possible. BVI is a unique place. Because of who we are as a people, it will be probably one of the few places where the government and the opposition leader will share the stage for a common goal. I am not here to score no fast political points. We are here to tell the people of the territory that the members of the House of Assembly are working together in the best interests to help the territory to face this COVID-19 global health emergency. Last week, I and other members of the opposition laid out a number of key things that we believe must be addressed as we navigate the myriad of issues arising as a result of this pandemic. We are pleased to see the government and the territory has taken on working constantly to ensure that the best health protocols are in place. As a former Minister of Health, I know far too well the needs of the sector, and I will continue to agitate that the requisite resources are put in place to tackle this head-on and successfully. I want to express sincere gratitude to the health workers for their diligence and commitment so far, and to continue to encourage them and support them as they do their duties. On the economic side, it is absolutely critical that we support our industries and businesses to the fullest extent, and especially our small businesses. We must ensure food security, business continuity. We must work with all economic partners, lenders, suppliers, industry, and business leaders, etc., to ensure that the BVI has an economy that is working as smoothly as possible. I am pleased that the Premier has pledged that input from the opposition has been and will continue to be taken into consideration when formulating policies and initiatives. This will be particularly important as we seek to find the best ways to sustain our health and our economy. Premier, I'll be a thorn in your side for our people. I thank God that in the midst of this global public health emergency, that so far the BVI has no confirmed cases. However, from all I've read and know, even the greatest and the optimist in me knows that it's not if, it is when. So I want to end on a solemn but serious note. All of us must do our part to keep this virus away from our shores by adhering to the recommendations, best practices, and protocols that are being shared by the BVI Health Services professionals through the Joint Information Center. Take them seriously. Adhere to them. We are in a reality where the quality of life of the persons next to you depends on the actions of each of us, and vice versa. So, If there was ever a time that being your brother's keeper or your sister's keeper meant anything, it is now. We have to take an individual responsibility and collective responsibility to look out for each other. The government has my support and that of my colleagues in the opposition. But Premier, that doesn't mean acquiescence. We will hold you to account on behalf of the people, and we will recommend and push for initiatives that we believe are in the best interests of the territory and the people of this territory. Together, we all come out on the better side of this, united and COVID-19 free, is my hope. I thank you.
I want to thank the leader of opposition for those frank and also timely words, because I want to let him to know that he too has my support, because this is not only one for political support, but is also one for a moral support, social support, because as leaders, we are living and breathing what needs to be done and how to do it to combat this worldwide pandemic. And it definitely takes a lot out of all of us on any side of the aisle, but now it's no side of the aisle with this. We're together. So I thank the leader of the opposition, and I myself welcome them keeping me to account, because I myself have to keep myself to account. Because if we get any move here wrong, it could mean the total destruction of the British Virgin Islands. So we have to not only move, but make the right moves and make them in the right time. And that's what we have been doing with COVID-19. Step by step, we came every week to let you to know what else Cabinet has decided. As I say, they have mushroomed out of discussions with the whole House of Assembly, the leader of opposition and his team, with us all in the government, and given to the Minister of Health and coming through the HEOC, and we implement them through the Cabinet, and where we need to hold the House of Assembly, which that will continue. There's nothing stopping it from continuing, but even if it's an emergency sitting, we will have it to make sure that whatever needs to be in place, whatever legislation needs to be placed, not only to deal with COVID-19, but to deal with our economy, will be done. I am a firm believer that with God's help, that the British Virgin Islands will come out of this a lot better than we're going in. But I pray God that COVID-19 stay from our shores. But in the eventuality, God forbid, I also thank God that we have moved in time to deal with the matter if one case is confirmed, and also what to do to contain it so that we can avoid the spreading of the disease. So those plans are in place. They're being fine-tuned. And as you can see, week by week, we're making sure that rather than shutting down the entire country one time, we're trying to make sure that we move step by step, stage by stage, giving everyone a chance to get whatever you need to get in place, so that in case we have to close the territory down to make sure that we avoid the spreading of the disease, everyone would have known that all the warnings that you could have possibly get, you have gotten them, and you should be ready. So with that, we know that this is a very short press conference because you have to be home by 8. So now we'll open the floor for any questions so that we can hurry, so that none of the media be caught outside. But nevertheless, go ahead. We'll vote for you.
Kathy Richards, JTV News. Thank you so much, honorables. I want to start off first with the last statement that you've made, because there seems to be a bit of confusion as to whether we have a curfew or whether we just have a curtailing of the hours for business. You just mentioned that, we all should be home by 8, and that wants to give the impression that there is a limit to the time persons are out of their homes.
A curfew by law in terms of the word comes through a state of emergency, but we're not in a state of emergency. But under the Health Act, the Public Health Act, it allows the Minister of Health to reduce operation hours in the territory when there's a health pandemic. So those operating hours for all is from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And whether one feels that no business should be operating after that, and all congregating should be stopped. But this is not one to debate. We're trying to do this to save lives. So what I want to tell persons is debating this and trying to violate it is saying that you do not care about your life nor your family's life. These measures must be adhered to. So it's not by law name a curfew, but it's still treated the same.
Okay, and my quick second question is, you alluded to being informed of persons who are violating these regulations that are put out there. Do you know of any actions being taken against them, seeing that they were identified?
Well, there are eventually going to be actions taken. And the leader of opposition, if you don't mind, could say that we agreed to have an emergency House of Assembly on Friday, because we needed to beef up the law to strengthen and also to back up whatever actions will be taken from anyone who violates quarantine and violates these measures. So we're going to amend the law to strengthen the capability of law enforcement and health enforcement agencies to be able to deal with these matters. Again, we will wish that we did not have to do this, because this is for everyone's own good. So once persons can adhere to this, then it would make life a lot easier. It is simple. I think that we saw the promotion says 30 lives in 30 days equal 30,000. I would say Virgin Islanders saved, because that's just about our population, probably 35,000 now, but we are wrong enough. So that's the maths. That mathematics that is in it. But the leader of opposition says something so important. It's up to us, each as individual, to adhere to this for our own good. It's not forever. It's for a short time to make sure that we minimize the traffic and interaction so that we can minimize the possibility of the virus spreading, because some persons may not have the virus, but they can be a carrier. And they go by somebody else and then they pick it up. And you'll say, well, they tested the other person and they didn't have it. So there are all kind of facets to this. Plus, this is a fluid virus, because you could have been tested today and still be infected tomorrow. So we want to make sure that we limit the interaction so that we can save lives. All people, and I believe the leader of opposition will join me in this, some of them have the mindset that it is not an enemy they could see, so they're taking it for granted. Well, the worst enemy to fight is the one you can't see. And this is the one you have to take the most precautionary methods and measures to fight. And they're in place. So we're asking everyone to adhere to them.
Good evening, Zan Lewis, ZBV Radio. Premier, you made mention that you're making these decisions for people's good, for the good of the people, to protect the people of the Virgin Islands. You have made measures to protect our borders. But while you make decisions to protect the people here in the Virgin Islands, there are people abroad, Virgin Islanders, who can't come home to protect themselves, because they are in places where the COVID-19 is spreading rapidly, and they want to come home, but they can't come home because because of you blocking the borders. I believe you have been receiving calls from these people. What the feeling like? What have you been telling them that, yes, you're a Virgin Islander, but you can't come home at this time?
Well, Zan, normally that would be a very difficult question, a very contentious question to answer. I understand every single Virgin Islander who is out who want to come home. I understand the cry. I understand it better than you think, Zan. As I stated, my wife changed her mind and wanted the children home from college this week coming. And she mentioned that to me Saturday. And I had to look my wife in the face and tell her no, because I didn't tell the public yet, but we shut in the borders on Sunday. So if I have to live with a decision where I shut a border where my 2 children still out there, in the heart of areas where it is and hoping that they're safe, there's nobody could explain to me the heartache of being out there. But at the same time, traveling, getting on a plane, being around all these persons increases your probability of being contaminated by the virus. And this virus does not respect nationality. It doesn't say if you're a BV Islander, you're free, so go home. It doesn't say that if you're a resident, you're free, go to the BVI. We have to understand we're trying to save lives locally and abroad. And we have allowed for certain things to happen, but the cutoff time is now. Fully. We cannot continue to be making exceptions when we put down something for the best for the people of the Virgin Islands. I am sympathetic to every Virgin Islander abroad, even to those that are there listening. And I know the leader of opposition will be too. But we cannot continue to take these chances, because if one case gets in here, whether by a belonger or well, only a national could come now, in a time when the borders were already closed and they get in and it happens, the first person you're going to point to is the government. No matter how much you wanted them home. So what I'm saying here to persons is let's exercise common sense. We want our people to be safe wherever they are. It's not an easy decision. But this virus is not one that respects nationality. So wherever you are, you have to try to make sure that you limit your contact, wash your hands, follow all the measures, and try to be safe. And we here have to do the same. We realize that persons want to come back here or get here because I've heard some of these things. We have 0 confirmed cases. Well, if we have 0 confirmed cases and limited resources to deal with who are here, and we keep expanding, we're putting our own selves in danger. And I must also add that when we put our own selves in danger, you know what we're going to come up to be faced with if we don't make hard and fast decisions? Who's going to live on the ventilator and who's going to die? Do you then want to be faced with that as a leader? Do any of you want to be faced with that as a leader because you keep flexing with the rules? To decide, well, you and your sister ended up there, but because we left the borders open, more people were there before you, and they only could accommodate one more person, and because you overcrowded the place, you have to decide whether your sister or you will be the one on the ventilator to live because of our actions. So I am not saying this in a bully type of way. I'm saying this in a way to tell people I understand your cry, but leadership cannot be mistaken for listenership. You have to act and stick to what you have done, and also keep check with our people abroad to make sure they are as safe as they can, but we cannot continue with exception. Where will it end? We have a lot of BV Islander people living abroad for years. If they want to come home now, all of a sudden, we were going to be totally overflooded. Yes, they have a right to be here, but this is a unique situation with a unique virus. So with it, and we are trying to help all of them and help us by saying wherever you are, adhere to the measures and you'll be okay.
You spoke about the border, sir, but at the same time, while the USVI automatically close their borders tomorrow, both in and out, here in the Virgin Islands, the border control measures only for those persons going coming in. It can still go out. That's what I don't understand, sir. Why not have a total closure instead of just coming in and persons are allowed to go out?
Well, they're tourists and we try to let them get out, and your point is correct. But we are meeting tomorrow to put an end to all of this. We allow for a certain time to get out. But we cannot have this continuing to happen. Because once the boat goes down there and it comes back up, we are facing with more people of the Virgin Islands or local persons saying, let me get on to get back home. And we have to put our foot down on these things. So with that, we're stopping the out and the in. And if you do get in, you must be quarantined for 14 days. Right now, those who are allowed in, it is not that they just get in just like that. The Minister of Health has informed them that, look, you have to be agreed that you're going to be quarantined for 14 days. And some have refused and they decide not to come, which we thank them. And those, because if you come, then you're saying that you don't want to adhere to the rules, although you're a Virgin Islander. And if you do come, they have to be quarantined for the 14 days. But we have to have a cutoff point with all of this. You're dealing with people's lives. The highest risk people here are our elderly people, 60 and over, like you Zan, and or youth, or very young. If we keep putting these persons who have built, those elders who have built this territory's life at risk, I can't sleep with myself as a leader knowing that I continue to make exceptions, increasing the probability of this happening. We have a lot of Virgin Islanders live in New York, and there was just something that came out this afternoon, said every person that live in New York that should be quarantined. There's some states telling you every person that come from there should be tested. We know these things, so we have to decide as the BVI if we're going to stick to what we're doing or not. And as your leader of the territory, we're going to stick to what we're doing.
Premier, you said you're allowing the people here to go out, right? Will it be then someone could conclude the people away, the BVI landers, were given enough time to come in before the borders were closed?
This one was not about giving time. This one was making a very tough decision in a timely manner. Because if we kept the borders open, if we kept the cruise ships coming, if we kept everything running like how it was, we will be telling the world that the BVI is not concerned about COVID-19. If we did not make sure that the funding was made available, up to $12 million for the healthcare, who received $8 million of it, and other agencies and government to get ready, we would be telling the world that we're not concerned about COVID-19. That's not the message that the 13 elected officials want to send, nor me as your premier. This is not about a message. This is about making sure that measures are in place to protect the people of the Virgin Islands. And I'm sure that most persons would say that they do not like the measures, but they're glad that they're put in place. And we'll continue to do that. Because if we can come out of this, and I pray to God that we come out without one case, but if we do get any case, that we can say that we were the smallest territory and we had the smallest number of cases of COVID-19. So that's my secondary goal, and that's all of our secondary goal, but one I hope that we don't have to use. The Minister of Health says is best. The best resources to use is to make sure that we avoid the COVID-19. And I paraphrase it for him. So that's the best thing for us to use. Any other questions for us?
Good evening, Honorables. Dana Campa, BVI Beacon. Thank you for your time. What is the total number of COVID test kits administered? How many does government have on hand? And is this enough to meet demand?
The statistical part will be given, I think it's tomorrow, by the Minister of Health. But what I can say, there's no country in the world who have enough kits to deal with if the entire populations want to be tested. I want to put it in perspective for everyone. We ordered, I think, is 250, just about 300 test kits. And we ordered them from early. We now have ordered 5,500 more. And we have been told out of the one area where we ordered the 5,000 kits that we are short of 1,000 just because of the heavy demand. And also Public Health in the UK have also pledged 500 kits. So we have for 1,500 more kits on the way. In terms of all the other statistics, I don't want to go into them because I want the public to be informed factually. I do have some of the information, but I don't deal with those statistics every day. So tomorrow when the Minister of Health comes, he'll be able to give you those statistics. But in terms of ratio for the population, we do have, I would say, not enough, but sufficient amount. But I would also say that there is a protocol established for who will be tested, because it's not everyone that feels sick is going to be tested. There are clear criteria of the symptoms you have to be feeling in order to call in to be tested. So please understand that we're not testing everyone that says, I feel sick. There must be clear, you must, when you're called, have those clear criteria. And I want to re-emphasize, if you are experiencing those symptoms, please do not go to the hospital. Make sure that you call and have them come to you, because if you go to the hospital or you go to your local doctor, you're endangering the patients that are there, the workers that are there, and you're endangering the doctors themselves. So please do not go call. I want to say that clearly so that everyone can understand. Let's take 3 more questions and 3 more questions.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Honorables, for being here. Joey Waldinger with the BVI Beacon. I'm wondering under what circumstances a state of emergency would be declared, and what essential businesses would be allowed to remain open, and would that include media houses?
Well, you know I would never shut down the media houses. I would never do that. I was accused of doing that with cybercrime, but we know that's not true. I'll never close down the media houses. I believe in freedom of speech. Plus, how can you close down a media house? You could work from anywhere. So you have your freedom. You're the best ones out of all, because you really don't have to go anywhere to get news. You sit home, watch the Facebook, you call who you have to call, you get what you have to get. So you're going to run even more efficiently than most other businesses through COVID-19. But I would say, rest assured that you're safe. Now, in terms of state of the emergency, we're far from that. We're praying to God that we never have to call that. State of emergency in the British Overseas Territories, especially in BVI, means something totally different to a state of emergency in America or the USVI, etc. So for us, it means that we have lost total control of the country. Persons are not adhering to any measures or any laws, and we're just out of control. I have never seen the Virgin Islands reach to that point. The closest was Irma, and I'm asking our people never to go back there again, because that's not the culture and the heritage of the people of the Virgin Islands. We should not need anyone to police us. We should be mature enough to police ourselves. And that's why I don't see the state of emergency coming in anytime soon. And I want to speak to my brothers and sisters out there. Please act accordingly, because if we get total chaos, that's the only time you can have a state of emergency. And we're going to try our best to make sure we don't get to that level. None of us want to get to that level. None of us will like that level. None of us will appreciate that level. Because if we get in it, we don't know how long we'll be in it. And that might be worse than COVID-19.
Good evening, Honorable Premier and Opposition Leader Kyla Kinisha from 284 Media. So my question is, now across the region, government has been presenting stimulus packages for specifically small businesses. Do the government at this time have any plans of helping small businesses or specifically persons working in the tourism industry?
Definitely. We're not finished with what we're doing. We still have some more discussions to have with the members of the House of Assembly, Leader Opposition, and others to match with some of what we want to do. I want to state that one of the things that we will be bringing out for sure is those who have been employed but now unemployed as a result of COVID-19 can also register at the Department of Workforce and Labor. We have many areas that we're working towards and economic stimulus that we want to bring forward. I want to say that it looks good, and in terms of the new media terms, it looks sexy to come out with economic packages. But we're seeing that most countries and territories that come with their economic packages, their state of affairs went worse, and they had to turn back on what they came out with. So we are trying to do a little monitoring and a lot of monitoring and a lot of discussions. We have a lot of things on the drawing board, but one of the areas that we did not hesitate on is making sure the funding were available to be proactive to try to prevent COVID-19. And that is what I'm proud of every single public officer. And we have the hotline number. I just want to let everyone know, 852-7650. The hotline number is 852-7650. For those who just tune in, the hotline number is 852-7650. If you're feeling sick with those symptoms, call that number and have them come to you. I think I needed to highlight that. Do not go to the hospital if you're feeling those symptoms. Please do not go to the hospital if you're feeling those symptoms, or to your local doctor. The last two questions.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and good evening, Honorables. Kamal Haynes from BVI News. I wanted to add to the economic question that was asked just now by Kyla. With several measures now implemented in the BVI to protect residents from COVID-19, what economic impact is expected from government, and what sectors are projected to be impacted mostly? And also, you would have just mentioned about economic, measures to be taken. I wanted to add to that, will government be implementing a special task force to assess any potential damages and put measures in place to help the territory bounce back from this pandemic?
Well, the last question I'll answer first. We do have a financial task force that's already formed, and we are beginning to increase the composition to allow for other persons to be on it, even in terms of persons from the government side also, and the opposition, and the other parts of the private sector. They have already done a first draft report, but we have asked to revise it before we come forward with it and allow those that are coming to be part of it. I want to say that those stimulus packages are going to come. I can't promise you this week, because we're still monitoring certain areas to make sure that when we come, we can have as clear a picture as possible. I know some of the areas that we're going to do. I can say them. Some that are clear cut, we allow them to go ahead of the entire package, like the agriculture and fisheries with the $2 million per district. The water one for those who don't have water and is connected, not just don't have water, but you don't have water because you're connected to the government public water system and you're not getting water, that you can call in and have water delivered. So there are other areas too that we have brought forward. But we brought them forward, but they were not done in isolation. They came out of the bowels of that committee and other discussions. But there are a lot more that have to come, not only in terms of stimulus packages, but new industries and new way of how to deal with matters. I'll take, for example, the leader of opposition called me, and he gave me a very good suggestion with telecom, with TRC. I listened to him and I tell him, okay. And I went to TRC and I discussed what he said, and also what some of my colleagues told me along with myself. And we charged the TRC board to make sure that they move with haste to get this done. Because in the middle of this, there are those who still intend in some businesses, not saying telecom, to make a profit and don't take any loss while everyone else is taking a loss. We all have to lose something in this one to gain. So those full packages, I'll be bringing them to you soon. I'll not be hiding them like we have done with everything else we're doing. I think that we can wind up before I say the last word. There's a lady. Okay. The leader of opposition know that we don't ever.
Yeah, you got to take care of the ladies.
Exactly.
Good evening, Honorables.
Yes.
Melissa McPherson, the Island Sun newspaper. Before I get to my question, just to piggyback on what you just said, Premier, regarding the TRC and the opposition leaders mentioned, are you referring to the IXP suggestion?
We're referring to all suggestions. We're not leaving any out. Because you see, it's a comprehensive thing that you give the board for TRC to look into. And the leader of opposition has been on that area, along with other areas. That's probably the only one that he said, but he did say other areas. So with that and other areas that we have brought to the table, we give it to them and ask them to go ahead to see what we can get for the people of the Virgin Islands, especially during this difficult period.
And my question, it piggybacks on what Zan talked about earlier as it relates to the border. We know the territory's border is porous. And you did mention that you don't want persons who are Virgin Islanders hopping on the ferry to come back. But we are the sailing capital, and there are a lot of other boats that can be used. Are we going to be up in surveillance to ensure that the borders aren't breached?
As we speak, we have other boats that we have access to, both police and customs. And I can tell everyone as we speak, they're getting in place. So I'm asking the people of the Virgin Islands, please don't do anything illegal. Please do not go out there and smuggle anyone in. Stay away from these illegal activities because the border control is moving in very strong. And strong might be an understatement, because we cannot afford for one bad element to reach in during this time to destroy us all. So we're beefing up everything that we can beef up in order to deal with that. But while we're at it, we know that we have to secure the people in many areas: food security, make sure that we let persons know that it's okay to feel concerned, but not alarmed to the point where you feel fear and doing the wrong thing. We know that you're concerned about your bank loans. We are on the bank to give us the best deal. We're not going to come off of negotiations with them. We're in this together. All of us are in this together, and your government is going to do its best. I'll get closing remarks by the Leader of Opposition before I close off.
All right, thank you, Premier. Thank the media for the questions and the answer segment. I want to thank persons who were listening on ZBVI Radio, those persons in the diaspora and locally who are watching on Facebook Live. As the Premier said, this joining of political rivals is about the people of the territory. We're here to do what is in the best interest of the people of this territory, to keep our people safe, to keep our borders safe from COVID-19. We have to ensure that we do whatever is possible to make sure that our businesses remain viable. And I will keep on the Premier to ensure that the necessary steps are taken to ensure that the employees and the businesses get the necessary support they need to continue to remain viable and productive in our territory. As we all know, small businesses are the drivers of any economy. So it's important for us to ensure the viability and the survivability of our small businesses and the small business industry. I also want to say to the public, I have seen persons around the territory not adhering to the protocols that have been established by the government and the health officials. And these are best practices from the WHO. These are not things that the Premier and his government make up, and the CDC. So we have to ensure that we do what is abundantly possible to ensure that we protect ourselves, protect our families, protect our friends. I watched in interest a documentary that talked about Citizen 31, where one citizen from South Korea who thought they were well and healthy, they didn't need to quarantine, they need to stay put. One citizen went to church, went to buffet, went around the town, at the time in South Korea only had 31 cases and they had it in grip, and infected over 5,000 persons from that one citizen. We have to adhere to the protocols that are established by the health officials. We can't act as if we don't have any cases so we could do as we please. We have to pretend as if we have tens of cases and do whatever we can to protect ourselves, protect our family, protect everyone in the Virgin Islands, both visitors and residents. So I support Premier in the efforts to protect our people, to protect our territory, protect our economy. As I said, I will keep him honest. I'll keep his foot to the fire, him and his minister and the other ministers and government members, to ensure that we get the best possible outcome for the people of the Virgin Islands. When I made that pledge in 2011 to represent the people of this territory, I made a pledge to the people of this territory to ensure I do whatever is humanly possible to ensure that they get the best possible representation ever. And my colleagues in opposition have the same position. We've been agitating the government. We've been speaking to the Premier. We've been speaking to his ministers, ensuring that all our people get the representation and the protection that they need through this difficult time. We've done it through Hurricanes Irma and Maria, but we all came together, all 13 of us came together for the best of the Virgin Islands. This situation is no different. This, as the Premier so rightfully said, COVID-19 is an enemy that we don't see. We could prepare for hurricanes, we could board up the doors and board up the windows, but we can't board up ourselves. But we can board up ourselves through quarantine, through social distancing, through limiting mass gathering, so that we could protect ourselves and our family from this enemy. I have to emphasize this because I see what's happening on the ground. People are not taking this seriously, and we need to take this seriously. We see what happened in Italy. They're now deciding to let people die. People are dying about 500 a day. It is scary. We see the spread, not to scare the public, but to bring the reality in focus, that we cannot take this laissez-faire attitude anymore. We have to take this situation seriously and move forward as one Virgin Islands. Again, I thank the Premier for standing in solidarity. This is what we should do. This is what leaders do in times of struggle, in times of difficulty. And I am here to stand here and fight for the people of these Virgin Islands and ensure that we get the best possible outcome as we move forward. I thank you.
I too will close off by saying I want to thank the leader of the opposition for coming forward and also being able to publicly show that we are on Team BVI together. And I know that I cannot shake his hand, but I know that we can elbow it, that we're going to be with each other elbow to elbow. And moving forward, all 13 of us, I ask to also put away all political differences, which we have pledged to do, and come together for not only the BVI's prosperity, but its survival. Because if we're not here, there's no BVI. So we have to keep faith and trust in God. And I want to echo the leader of opposition. People of the Virgin Islands, once you're here, even if you're abroad, adhere to the measures put in place. Do not behave as this is just a passing cloud and it doesn't exist. People are dying from it. And I want to thank all my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for their support. As your leader, I told you that my aim is to be an unconventional leader. And true leadership is always knowing when to follow. Because a true leader knows when to follow and know when to lead. And in the times in this when I had to follow the Minister of Health in the Ministry of Health, and there were times when I had to lead. There were times when I had to follow the leader of the opposition and listen to him. And there were times when I had to lead. We don't have any ego about this one or about any time. That's the way I try to lead. Whatever needs to be done to make sure the people of the Virgin Islands are safe, protected, our economy is buoyant, and that we don't forget God. You can conquer on this Premier here for doing it. And I want to say to the leader of opposition tonight that I know it's not something simple. Because most countries will not do what we're here doing, where you will see the leader of the territory with the leader of opposition to say, we're standing elbow to elbow on this one. And for that, I don't have any money or currency that I could pay to the leader of the opposition that'll be enough, except to pay him with gratitude that he has put country before self and that both of us has done that in all 13. May God forever bless the BVI, and may the blood of Jesus Christ continue to protect us, that COVID-19 will stay outside. And if it do get inside, may Jesus kill it so it doesn't spread, and that we be safe. And the BVI comes out of this stronger than ever. I declare and decree that in the atmosphere in Jesus' name for all territory. And I know all 13 of us in the leader of opposition joined it. And with that I say amen. Thank you and good night.